Hey guys, thanks so much for stopping in. I sure appreciate it. I have 17 palettes in front of me today that we need to rank. These are going to be the 17 palettes that I used in 2024. They were new to me, new to my collection, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they were new in 2024. Some of them were, some of them weren't. Some were released in 2023 and some even earlier than that, but they've come into my collection within the year of 2024. So like I said, I've got 17 in front of me and I'm going to go ahead and rank those for you guys. All right, guys. So a little bit of a spoiler alert. I have decluttered this palette from my collection. I have already done my declutter. You guys will be seeing a peek at that soon. But this is the only palette I have decluttered from the collection that's in this list. And it's not terrible. It's the ColourPop Peach Out palette. Now, it's not a terrible palette. The formula is perfectly fine. I think for me, the mid-tones are all just too similar on the eyes. And this shade right here just isn't deep enough to deepen it up and give me enough depth that I'm happy with it. So I think that's the problem with this one for me, is it's almost too peach, because even this really deep one has a peach undertone, and I understand it's a peach monotone palette. I get that, but it's just too much peach for me. I don't gravitate towards this. Again, the formula's perfectly fine, but I have no desire to use it. So this one did get decluttered and did fall at the bottom at number 17. Number 16 here is the Pat McGrath Bijou Brilliance Sunset Romance palette. And I actually really like this one. I don't quite understand the hype with Pat McGrath formula. It's not a top favorite formula of mine by any means. But I do really like this one. I do really like these shades and these colors. They accent each other very, very nicely. But this one is falling at the very bottom because it doesn't have a deepening shade. This is the deepest shade right here, and it's shimmer heavy to matte. It's 3 shimmers and 2 mattes. And personally, I prefer a matte heavy palette. So I would prefer that to be in reverse in this situation, but it is missing that deepening shade. So except for the fact that I just need a deeper outer corner color, this one's perfectly fine, but that is why this one's at the bottom. Coming in at number 15, it is a favorite brand and a favorite formula of mine. And I love every single look I do with this one. It brings me pure joy to use it. But the reason it is so low is because I did have to be picky in order to get this done, get it ranked, but every single look I create is the same, and I'll explain why. It is the Natasha Denona Xenon palette. I mean, looking at it, it is pretty monochromatic to begin with. It's very gray, it's very bluish gray. I get blue on my eyes when I put it on my eyes. But I think for me, the most frustrating part is the fact that Flurry and Blizzard are too light for my skin. They don't show up. So it kind of eliminates those 2 shades. And that ends up leaving Snert as the only crease shade. How I prefer to do my makeup anyways. Snert ends up being the only crease shade that I have. So everything is going to have a gray hue on it. I mean, it's obviously going to, because the palette says that there's only certain colors in here. But with Snert being the only crease shade, as far as deepening outer corner shades, it's going to be Ebb, Sposh, and Night Sky. And all 3 of those look exactly the same on the eye. They really do. And this one is a cream to powder, and I believe this one is too, maybe. And they're just harder for me to work with in this particular palette. I normally don't mind the cream to powders, but these are a little bit harder to work with. But seeming as all 3 of these are the ones I would use in the outer corner, and this is a crease shade, the only thing that's ever different is the shimmer. And even then, all the shimmers are like white, except for this pinkish one, which does not show up pink on the eyes, and this more tan one, which does not show up tan on the eyes. So it ends up being extremely monochromatic, but it is beautiful. So I do love it, but it is at the bottom because we got to be picky here, and I have 15 shades and I get the same look every time. Number 14 is the Blend Bunny Blends. And again, there's nothing wrong with this palette. It is stunning. The formula is incredible. My only concern with this particular palette is the fact that it is purely mattes. I do enjoy a shimmer. I do have to pull in a shimmer either from another palette or from a single, which I don't mind doing. I used to be against it. I don't like combining palettes, but I've kind of grown up and grown out of that stage a little bit. So I do really like this, but it is very colorful and it has a lot of colors I don't typically use. For example, this more tealy row up here is just not shades I'm going to use. The reds down here are blue-based reds, and me having a warm undertone, they appear really pink, and I just don't use pinks. So I'm kind of limited to the purple, the greens, and the warm tones. So it kind of eliminates some of the shades in the palette because they're just not shades I'm going to use all the time. But it is a beautiful formula, beautiful color story, but that is just why it's a little bit lower. Funny enough, though, coming in at number 13 is the Patrick Ta Major Dimensions 3 palette. This is as boring gets, I think. Sorry, I'm trying not to blind you, but this is as boring gets. But there is something about this palette that just really makes me feel good every time I wear it. Yes, it's an all matte. Yes, I have to pull in a shimmer, which is why it's barely above the Blend Bunny. Barely. But the reason it is because I get a warm row and a more cool tone row. And I'm kind of enjoying playing with these cream shadows. I gave it a shot the other day. Kind of surprised myself with how well I did and how it turned out. And I enjoyed how it looked. And so I was kind of proud of myself for that one. But it's a neutral everyday palette, which I am a neutral lover. And I love that we've got the warm and the cool options. Yes, I have to bring in a shimmer. But hey, this is a beautiful palette. Coming in at number 12 is ColourPop Stranger Things collab. So this one, I keep wanting to use it. And I think that's why it is a little bit higher than it probably should be. But these are more colors that I will actually use. I used to sit here and tell you guys I am not a blue eyeshadow person, but now that I actually live somewhere where it's cold and it snows, like we just got like a record-breaking snowdrop here in Kansas City. It was like, I think in parts of my backyard and some of the higher drifts, I was getting 15 inches, so it was a monster. But when it snows or when it's cold and cloud covered, it makes me want to wear blue eyeshadow. So I've really been digging eyeshadow or blue eyeshadows. So this whole bottom section is just like perfect for this time of year for me. I'm really digging these. And then of course I've got some warm tones up here, and these reds right here are warmer reds. So they actually look red on my eyes versus pink. So I can really appreciate that. So, and we've definitely got mattes and shimmers, a good ratio of each. So yes, there is a couple of those pressed glitter formulas. They are not my favorite, but I can make them work with some glitter glue and a little bit of patience. So that is why ColourPop here is at number 12. So ironically, I didn't realize that until I just opened my mouth to speak what number 11 is, and it's actually another ColourPop, and it's the 1111 palette. How funny, right? But this, oh my goodness, you guys, this palette is so beautiful. I did not purchase this one. I actually won it in a giveaway from our friend here on YouTube, Laura. So I will link her channel down below. She's always doing giveaways. So make sure you guys watch her videos and check her out. She never announces them. Well, she does sometimes, but anyways, get in on her giveaways because this was a really great one. And I am so happy that I won this because I initially had no intention of buying it because I was like, oh, another neutral palette. But this one really is a great one. I like that it's got a little bit of the pinky purple mauve side to it. And then you've got your warmer golds and some neutral browns. It's just a very beautiful, wearable, everyday color story. And of course, it's the good ColourPop formula. I think that there is one pressed glitter, maybe two, but again, ColourPop just loves those, and there's always going to be one, I feel like. But overall, I'm very happy to have this in my collection. Very grateful I was able to win it, and it is just beautiful. So that is number 11. Coming in at number 10 is the Natasha Denona My Dream palette. This is definitely not a 2024 release, but it was a 24 purchase for me, and I really like this color story. I know Alter Ego did a drop recently of an inspired by kind of color story for this one, but I am so grateful to own this one by Natasha Denona. I really do like her formula, and this one is no exception, and it's just a stunning color story. It just really is up my alley when I want something. Trying not to blind y'all. It really is just up my alley when I am looking for just a nice color story that is beyond browns and golds, my warm neutrals that I tend to gravitate towards. I just feel like this is something a little bit different for me. Every shade in here I will wear, and my favorite shade in here is Vision, which looks purple in my monitor, my screen right now, but it definitely is green in other angles. So I'm trying not to blind you. But if you've got this palette, you know it. But that is my favorite shade in this palette, and it's fantastic formula, and I'm just really grateful to have this one in my collection as well. Coming in slightly higher than that one at number 9 is another Natasha Denona palette, but this is the Retro palette. This one is definitely an older palette, but y'all, this color story, this year was kind of my year for more of like mauve-y, purpley tones, not necessarily pink, but more of the mauve side, like purplies. So this one definitely scratched that itch for me when it came to trying to find more like Valentine's Day feeling colors. This, it does have some touches of pink in it, but it's not overly pink. I don't feel like I'm diving in pink waters over here. It's definitely wearable pink for me. And I really just love like this tone right here and this tone up here. These are just really nice. And they are, there is quite a few cream to powders in this one, which again, I don't necessarily mind her cream to powder formula. I can take it or leave it. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. So either way, I'm fine with it. But I just really like this particular level of pink and purple. It's a great color story, and I found myself wanting to use this way more than I actually even thought I would after purchase. So I am excited that February is coming up around the corner because that means I get to dig this bad girl out again. Coming in at number 8 is Ensley Rain Cold Moon. Yes, this did come up higher in my ranking, but I will say I don't think I'll be purchasing any more from Ensley Rain. Because to be honest, even though this is a stunning color story, personally, I am just kind of over duochromes, multichromes, shifty shadows. I really just am. I want to pick up this beautiful shade and I want to see that beautiful shade on my lid. And oftentimes, I'm not getting the shade that I picked up for because the way the light's hitting it. And that really speaks true to these 3 shades right here. Because what I'm seeing right now from my angle, I'm seeing more of like a blue, more of like a bluish purple, and kind of like an almost green. But I don't think you guys are seeing that in this particular lighting and angle. And for me, like sometimes that can be really pretty and sometimes it can be very frustrating there. Now you can see the shifts in those shadows. So I know that multichromes, duochromes, those are all really popular in the indie world. And Ensley Rain is very famous for having a lot of multi-shifty shadows. I'm personally just over it. So yes, this is a stunning color story. The mattes are silly, easy to blend. The shimmers, even though the shifty shades are pretty, some of them are actually kind of flaky and chunky. So why am I putting this so high? Because the mattes are pretty wonderful and because it is a beautiful color story. But at this point, I don't want any more shifty shadow, so I am done with it at this point. I know there's some other drama with Ensley Rain. I'm not going to get into that, but for the sake of this ranking, yes, it's high because I really do like this color story for this time of year. But I will say I think that might be my final palette because I'm just over the shifty shadows. Coming in at number 7 is Makeup by Mario, the Master Mattes, the Neutrals. So this is the more cool tone palette. This one I really, really like. And after I bought it, I continued to use it over and over and over and over and over and over. And I kept wanting to use it over and over and over. So to me, that's a really good sign that I'm really loving this palette. And I couldn't because at the time I was doing my No Pan Left Behind project. But I kept finding excuses to go back and use that one or pull a shade or two to pull it in for a look. So I do really like this. As someone who typically prefers warmer shades, the fact that I'm so into this really tells me that this is more of a neutral on me than a cooler tone. Some people get a cool tone vibe. I definitely get more of a neutral. I just really appreciate this formula. Yes, it has a lot of kick up in the pan, but this just blends so beautifully on my eyes, and I have really wrinkly, crinkly, and dry eyelids, and this just performed really well. They're very well pigmented. It just kind of fits all my boxes, checks all my boxes for a really good formula. So I do really like this formula. Yes, it is missing some sparkle, some shimmer, but honestly, when I use these palettes, this one in particular, I should say, I don't feel the need to pull in a shimmer when I use this one, like versus Blend Bunny or versus the Patrick Top Major Dimensions. I do feel like I need shimmer with those. With this one, I feel like I can do the matte look and walk away. So that is why this one is much higher. This one surprised me with how high it is in the ranking, but I just love it that much. I took this one with me on a trip out here to Kansas City before I moved here. I was out here for a week and I only brought this one palette and I used it every day. And the variety of looks I got, I should probably show you real quick. It's the Sigma Earthy palette. This is coming in at number 6. The versatility in this palette really blew me away. I did not expect to get as many different looks as I did, considering there's only 9 shades here. But there's several options for crease shades. This one actually shows up on me, even though it's light, it does show up, but I can do more of like a more muted, like brownish, warm tone color, or I can do more of like a mustardy tone, and then that'll set the tone for either this like reddish orange shimmer, a green shimmer, more like antique gold shimmer. So the amount of looks that you can get out of this, yes, there's only one deep shade, but it's a brown. It's a neutral brown. It will go with anything, right? So this one shocked the heck out of me of how many different looks I got and how versatile it is. And I fell in love with it because it was the only thing I used for a week. And after a week, I was like, can I keep using this? But I needed to switch it out, for my project that I had going. So this one is coming in at number 6, and the Sigma formula is fantastic. So there you go. Coming in at number 5 is Nomad Ireland Wild Atlantic Way. For a green eyeshadow lover like myself, this is it. This is your girl. This is what you need right here. The Nomad formula is fantastic. I love what Nomad stands for and what they do. If you don't know, Nomad has a tendency to give back to the community in different ways with every palette launch that they have. And I apologize, I really don't remember what the Irish Wildlife Trust, that's what the back of this palette says. So I hope that that's what that is. But green, and now being more of a blue tone lover, I can appreciate these blue pops in here just a little bit more, which is why this palette ended up even going even higher than I originally had it, because I'm feeling the blues, but it's greens and warm golds, and I don't know what else to say. Formula is fantastic. Color story is amazing. I just really, really, really love this palette. But shockingly, there has to be 4 other palettes above it. And they might kind of surprise you knowing that I'm a green tone lover. But the other one coming up here at number 4 is the other Makeup by Mario Master Mattes palette. And this is the warm one. So everything I said about the cool tone palette stands true for this one, except it's warm tones. And as a warm tone neutral lover, it doesn't get better than this, right? It doesn't get better than this. This, I love it so much. And this more reddish brown, I appreciate this shade so, so much, because like I've said before, most reds turn pink on me because most reds are blue based when you're talking about them being in palettes and whatnot. This one is a warm based reddish brown, and I'm so grateful to finally have one of those shades in my collection because I struggle with reds so badly. But everything I said about the cool tones or the more cool tone leaning palette, the neutrals palette applies to this one. It's just warm and she's beautiful. All right, we're in the top 3, you guys. Any guesses? Pause. Drop some guesses below. We'll see if you're right. But coming in at number 3, which I just picked up not too long ago, but I absolutely could not put this one down once I started. And I even ignored some of my project pan for this one. But believe it or not, it's the Odin's Eye Trick or Treat palette with Angelica Nyqvist. You guys, she created like essentially my dream color story, okay? This is stunning. It is absolutely stunning. You've got the most amazing greens I've ever seen. You've got this beautiful pop of blue. You've got these like mauve-y purples that I'm totally into. These other greens down here are just exceptional. Then you've got orange. You've got your like grungy, swampy, greenish yellow up here. You've got a really deep brown, almost black here. Oranges, I'm a sucker for orange, and this red is the truest red I've ever put on my eyes. The truest red, because it is an orange-based red, because if you don't watch Angelica Nyqvist, she is a warmer, like orange and blue tone lover. So I have such mad appreciation for this. The only reason that this is 3 instead of 1 or 2 is because I have to be picky when we get up to the top, right? I have to be picky. But this particular shade right here And I think this one right here, it's a much grittier formula. So they have a tendency to have a lot more fallout. And if we're going to be picky, I got to be picky, right? So this color story though, just, oh my gosh. I knew I was going to like it when I got it. I didn't realize I was going to love it as much as I did. So I'm so grateful for Angelica Nyqvist for creating this color story. It is absolutely stunning, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Everything else, I mean, other than those two chunky shimmers, everything else applied incredibly well. Okay, coming in at number 2, were any of your guesses right? It is Natasha Denona Golden. Yes, the Golden palette. I do think this one came out in 2024. Is this boring? Yes. Is it stunning? Yes. Do I love it? Yes, I do. This, I've always said my favorite kind of brown is like a caramely brown. Hi, hello, that's most of this palette. It is so beautiful in my eyes. I know this is kind of like a step down from her gold palette that she had that had the teal shades in it. I don't really like teal that much, so I'm good. I'm so good with this. This is such a beautiful color story. And yes, it's got some yellow golds in it right here, but I just really appreciate that there's more than yellow golds, and they just, it's stunning. I don't know what else to tell you other than it is stunning, and it's my favorite formula. It's Natasha Denona. Natasha Denona has my favorite formula. It has my heart because it performs one of the best formulas that performs on my crazy eyelids. My eczema really creates some problems for me. It really makes eyeshadows look patchy. Some eyeshadows don't want to blend over them at all. Natasha Denona's formula, I really don't have any issues with it blending and performing and lasting on my crinkly, wrinkly, bumpy eyelids. So her formula is just amazing, and this color story, just the browns in this one just hit home for me. I'm so grateful I got this. And the funny thing is, I almost didn't pick it up. I'm so glad I did. I don't know why I hesitated to pick that one up, but I'm just, And my number 1 palette, drum roll, please. Any guesses? It's also a palette that I almost didn't buy. I saw that and I was like, I don't think I need it. I can't believe I hesitated on this one either. And I waited way too long for it. I lost too much time waiting on it. And it is the Natasha Denona I Need a Warm palette. Okay, look. Again, same explanation as the Golden palette. Is it boring? Yes. Is it beautiful? Yes. For some reason, I could not put this away. I set myself back in my Project Pan palette for this one. The other ones, I was able to tear myself away after a couple of uses, be like, no, you have a project you're working on, let's focus on it. This one destroyed my Project Pan there for a hot minute because I was like, no, I want to use this one. I want to use this one. And I know we just talked about how I'm over shifty shades, but this Phenomena shade right here on the eyelids is so pretty because even though it looks red here in the pan, on my eyelids, it pulls primarily green, and that's what I prefer, and it's just so exceptional, and there's something about this palette, I cannot put it down, and even now looking at it, I'm like, ooh, I should use this one tomorrow. But anytime I needed a neutral look when I was out running around or, going to meetings or whatever it is I needed, this was the neutral palette that I ran for. I didn't really think about anything else there for a hot minute. I ran for this one. So she ended up being number 1 because she was definitely my most used for absolute sure. All right, guys, that was the 17 palettes I tried in 2024. To be honest, when I realized I had 17 palettes, I was kind of back and forth about how I felt about it. Part of me was like, oh, that's it, 17. The other part of me was like, 17, girl? You bought 17 palettes in 1 year? But then I also looked at what I decluttered, and we're going to go through all of that too before the end of January. We're going to assess my collection. We're going to look at what I decluttered, what I brought in. Obviously, you saw what I brought in palette-wise. But overall, my collection amount really didn't change. I stayed about 63 palettes. I think I started the year with about 63, and I ended the year with 63. So even though I brought in 17 palettes, that means I decluttered 17 throughout the year. And we will talk about that. We'll go into it. But I just want to say thanks for hanging in there with me. Thanks for chilling, having a great time, and I look forward to seeing you guys in my next one. Later much!